The Lumiere brothers were one of the first people that made film, but they did not edit. They mostly used static shots. This made them pioneers because without them, editing would have not been invented, because they made film take off and got people interested in film. They made a film of a train coming into its station. This frightened a lot of people because they thought it was a real train. What the Lumiere brothers used to film this clip of the train was the cinematography. This was the first film recorder. This was that they used for their static shots. George Milius, he was the first person that used special effects. These special effects were shown on one of his most famous films called The Voyage to the Moon. What he used to add colour was paint. What he did was paint on the film. This was an early example of drawn on film. He was also the first cinemagician. This means he filmed magic. He also invented dissolves, which he used in a lot of his films, like The Voyage to the Moon. He also made narratives. This was shown in the film Voyage to the Moon because it tells a story. He thought the narrative was an important part of film, and he was right. Edward S. Porter invented cross-cutting, which is where you have two different scenes and put them together to add emotion or make the narrative stronger. This was an important invention because it makes a film understandable. Edward S. Porter's most famous film was The Great Train Robbery, which used cross-editing, which made it famous because it helped the narrative to be easy to understand, but Edward S. Porter did not use cross-cutting to its full ability, which was okay because it let other people like D.W. Griffiths continue his work. D.W. Griffiths took Edward S. Porter's work and refined it. He made cross-cutting better, which helps us today because it helps our films. Cross-cutting also created rhythm and space between films. He also did lots of different shots in films, like different angles and from different distances. He also cut up his scenes to show different angles on the same motion. Eisenstein made a film called The Battleship Potemkin. This film was about the Tsar sending his troops down the stairs to kill all of the people. This film used a lot of different shots. He also made montages. This revolutionized film because it allowed filmmakers to show a lot of content in a very short time, or can be used to show the main character's progress. La Nouvelle Vague, the new wave, were directors, but they broke all of the rules, like the 180-degree rule. They did this because they had been forced to make classic Hollywood films, and it broke them. They also made editing techniques such as the jump cutting. This would help keep the speed and the rhythm. They also did experiments with films. This is how they found out that the jump cutting works. In-camera editing is where you keep starting and stopping the film with the camera film still in the camera, which creates special effects. An example of this is Voyage to the Moon, which was created by George Milius, but there is a problem with the camera editing. If you mess the shot up, you have to do it again because you cannot edit it. The Moviola was named after a famous phonograph which name was Victrola, and the company who made it was called the Victor Company. They made it in 1924. Because it was so expensive, people couldn't have one in their household. Lon Serrero came up with the idea when he noticed editors needed an easy way to edit and see the clips. The first customer was Douglas Fairbanks. After After him, lots of companies started to buy them, such as MGM, Warner Brothers, and Universal. The flatbed, or the Steenback, is basically a moviola on a table. This was used to edit, and it was made in the 1931. The first Ampex invention was called the VTR, which stands for the video tape recorder. This allowed people to film using magnetic tape. This was made in the 1956. The next thing Ampex made was the VTR 1000, which was made 2 years after the VTR. This was made in 1958. This was used to create new methods of editing, and it allowed invisible frames. Linear editing is where you have film reels and you put them together and in order. They can't put the reels in different bits because it would take too much time before the VRT. Linear editing isn't really used anymore because non-linear editing allows you to do so much more. Non-linear editing is where you have lots of different clips and you could put them where you want, so you cut and change the footage with more freedom and creativity. This type of editing helps editors to make better shots because you have lots of clips just for one movement or one scene. The purpose of editing is where you have time, space, and rhythm. Time is where you stretch the clips or shorten the clips, and it is where you put clips in different places so it shows in different times throughout the film. The space is where their cuts are understandable and believable and is not in the same shot. Rhythm, the length of the shot is edited to the beat so it keeps to the rhythm and it gives a more entertaining shot.